Hey, I'm here to go through my thought process on the tier list, right? On the skill ceiling tier list, and just go one by one, like ranting about the different characters. I do have the original tier list on the side here, so that I could reference it, but it probably won't be like 1-to-1. But yeah. So let me first talk about what is a skill ceiling. I don't know why, but apparently the Strinova community does not understand what a skill ceiling is. The skill ceiling, the maximum potential of your character, right? When you're using their kit to its full effectiveness, right? And more specifically, the amount of knowledge you have to learn to get to that maximum effectiveness. Let's rank two characters that I'm very familiar with, right? And then we could go on for there, okay? And okay, so like I'm a Ming and I'm a Yvette main, okay? Those are my two mains, right? Ming, like I don't know, I'm just fucking. I was like fucking I was Stockholm syndromed into playing Ming. I guess I play her now, and I've been playing Yvette since season 1 because I thought she was cute, and then I fell in love because she goes invisible and shit. But let's just go over their kits, and also let me say another thing about skill ceiling, right? It is not like directly related to how, what is it? How powerful a character is. So, for example, right, if we have Galatea here, I also used to play Gala. Gala would be pretty high because, you know, there's a lot of stuff you could do with her Q. There's a lot of, like, mechanical stuff. You have to know how to evade people, how to think, how other players think, and be considerate of how the enemy will respond to you, stuff like that. So she'd be really high up, right? But is Gala particularly strong? Not really. Ming, like if this was like a meta or like power tier list, Ming would be at the very top. But we're gonna go over the different rankings with Ming shortly. Another thing is that this game doesn't really have that big of like variety when it comes to the characters. What I mean is that every character kind of plays the same, like overall. Like yeah, like Ciel and Chio play the game very differently, but what is it? For the majority of the roster, we have like duplicate guns or the same aiming mode, which is every single character except the snipers and Ciel, which is tracking. So everyone aims the exact same. We barely have any movement abilities except these three fuckers, so we don't really have that much variety outside of that, and every single ability activates at a press of like one key on your keyboard, and sometimes two. So what I'm trying to say is that if like a character, for example, like let's do Flavia, like but Flavia, like if you have a bad Flavia, then you lose. It's like, yeah, but if you have a bad any teammate in this game, you will lose. Oh, but if your Flavia mispositions herself, then, you know, we'll lose, and that's bad, and that's indicative of a bad Flavia, and that means Flavia has a high skill set. No, it fucking doesn't. Because if you misposition yourself as any character in the game, then you're boned. Do you see what I'm talking about, right? So, I mean, except, like, I don't know, like, maybe, like, Nobu TP, maybe, like, Gala TP, I don't fucking know. Maybe, I mean, Celestia has another I don't know why this game is obsessed with teleports. Celestia can teleport, but that doesn't mean that, like, you still don't have to position yourself. Like, there's things that you can do with every character, right? But you need to have things that are unique to that specific character. It's like, oh, but the snipers are hard to aim. And I'm like, cool. And every character is kind of hard to aim, right? So like, this goes back to the learning aspect. You have to learn about your kit and then use it effectively afterwards, right? Because if your kit is you press Q and it does everything for you, and your passive does everything for you, and is also a bonus, then you kind of like you kind of just don't have to really think that much when you play the character. There's more about like thinking, right? So it's like how much do you have to think when you play the character, and then how much, and then how hard is that thinking, right? So it's like, oh well, you have to think a lot as a Ming, right? You have to like, so you're the designated in-game leader at times, blah blah blah, right? But you know, anyone could IGL first and foremost, and second, you're not really thinking about your kit. I want, like, this tier list is about thinking about your kit and how much you can, and thus like the amount of skill that like you could maximize, right? This is the skill ceiling, the skill maximum, right? So not specifically the difference between like a bad player and a new player, like a bad player and a good player, but more, I mean, it could be, right? But it's more about like how difficult it is for your character to unlock that maximum potential. So like with the event, you have to do like 10,000 fucking hurdles just to place down one fucking piece of ice, and versus that where you have Yagiri and you have a Q that you can't even fucking break. So I mean, it would have been a balancing nightmare if it could be broken, but you get what I mean, right? So Yagiri is, what is it, like you just press Q and you throw it, right? You press Q and you throw it. You press Q and you throw it. But then you still have to think about how that Q interacts with other characters and stuff like that, because that's also part of the thinking that, like, the thinking process that you have to go through, right? So I feel like the Strinova community just doesn't know what a skill ceiling is, because when I put a character like Ciel up here, right, in S, because of her super dash, and then Bimo lower down, people complain. But the thing is, though, is that these two super dashes, while they do have the same moniker, they do have the same naming schema, they are not the same. Bimo's is a free action, while Ciel has to give up her shield, right? So Ciel has to think more about how that Q interacts with the rest of the game. It's like, oh, can I play without a shield? Is that an option? You know, it's like, is it even a good idea to give up my shield? Should I tank instead? And then Bimo's a free action. You just jump, and then you get the super dash. Yippee, yay. Well, Ciel has to give something up. So, like, with Bimo, you just fucking do it. So, like, you still have to think somewhat, right? You still have to think. Where it's like, oh, is it better to just normal dash? Are they used to my super dash? Do I have to do a mix-up of some kind? Right? Is it going to be my mix-up tool, or is my normal dash going to be my mix-up tool? Kind of deal. So you still have to think as Bimo, right? And that's the reason why he's in B. But the thing is, though, is that you have to think way more with Ciel. And not only that, but there's also more stuff that you have to do with Ciel, right? With the skill ceiling of Ciel. Like, if you're going to properly do super dashes as Ciel, you need to know the proper Ciel super dash timing. You have to know how to vary them so that they're not predictable. You have to know how to B-hop. You also have to know how the momentum system in this game works. How you can, like, redirect yourself by hitting certain walls. There's a lot of things you can learn with Ciel. So this skill ceiling is also very, like, related to learning. Like the amount of knowledge you have to have for each character. So that's the reason why those two are there, right? So now let's go back to the baselines here. We're going to go Yvette versus Ming here. Okay, just real quickly. How many things can you do? Let me take away Yvette here. How many things can you do with Ming? Okay, you press Q. Okay, and that Q can do 3 or 4 things, right? Pseudo scan, which I've talked about before, but I think, I don't know, apparently no one talks about this, is like using your hit markers and such to know where an enemy is, right, within like a smoke or like any kind of concealment. So you could use your Q to sweep like a smoke or sweep an area to see where an enemy is, right? You could use it as a slow. You could use it to destroy an interceptor or a deployable. So like Michelle Q's, for example. And that's kind of it. Oh, and also technically heal, but the healing amount is so minute and negligible that I forgot it existed until now. Like, I had to remind myself. So, there's like, what, 4 or 5 things, right? Now let's do Yvette, right? Yvette can deny the bomb with charge. She could force a fight with charge by force gliding, right? So there's anything you can do with force gliding, right? Which is get an enemy out of a position or deny bomb, right? You could use phase. You could use Faye and standing behind Faye to zone out of an area. You could use ice and a grenade with a lineup to do damage combo. You could also do damage combo with show. You also could hide invisibly for early pushes. You could hide invisibly for a pick, to anti-lurk, to lurk. See, that's already 9 things, and I could go on and on about other stuff you could do as Yvette. There's so many different things you could learn and try to improve at as Yvette. So many different skills. There's lineups, there's movement tech. There's literally, like, if you want to have this, like, character that takes a long time to learn, you learn Yvette. Well, for example, with Ming, you press Q, big score. It was kind of hyperbole, kind of like sarcastic in the post, but at the same time, like, with Ming, like, okay, so I talked with Yvette's passive, right? You could go invisible and, like, you could lurk and do, like, sneaky stuff with Yvette's invisibility. What do you do with Ming's passive? What we do with Ming's passive is you shoot your gun, which is something you already do. And that's it. Maybe you could think about it a little. It's like, oh, hey, I could use this to push a little bit more. And that's about it, right? The thing is, though, let's see. Let's look at every DPS in this game with some form of sustain. And it's like, well, that's not really that unique, right? So, like, that doesn't really have... That's not that much stinking, you know? You just fucking press W slightly more. Sure, like, I guess. It's like, you get to be more aggressive and take more fights. But that doesn't mean that you really do have to think more about while playing that character, right? Arguably, if your character can't take that many fights, then you have to consider, oh, can I heal? Oh, I have to find a source of healing. Or, oh, hey, I need to find a way to surprise this bad guy, to surprise this enemy in a way that lets me have an advantageous position, right? So that I can make up for the fact that I don't have sustain, right? It's also, some characters don't even have, they're not even duelists and they have sustain, but those are the two healers. But you know what I mean. So Ming is in D tier because of that. And mind you, I love fucking Ming. I love playing Ming. But here's the two, like, characters that I'm very familiar with that set the scene on how this tier list is gonna, like, pan out, you know? So now we're gonna actually go to the ranking, right? And I'll try to talk about, like, if there's anything extremely interesting, I'll talk about them in detail. But outside of that, I will just, like, go over each and every single one. And just, like, you know, just rank them, right? You know, fucking tier list works, I presume. This is also relative, right? So if we have, like I said before, for every character in this game, you just press a button and they do everything for you. Like, the most complex it gets is, like, Yvette Bear and, like, show arrows, and that's about it. So there's not that much mechanical, like, skill ceiling there. But then again, that's why she's so high, but that's besides the point. So the mechanical skill ceiling is not very high. So mind you, let me go back to another point. These two characters are basically the same amount of skill ceiling, like, despite the fact that is just that if this tier list was squished, then, like, every character would be either an A or B tier, and that would be really fucking boring and also tell you fucking nothing. So that's the reason why I'm expanding the tier list here, because, like, oh wow. So now I get to appease everybody. Now no one gets mad that their character's low on the tier list, but at the same time, it's like, well, then the tier list tells you fucking nothing, right? So it's like, wow, that's so cool. It's at a immeasurable scale of equalness. That's so awesome. It's like, you know, well, you know, the entire point of hero shooters after fucking, like, Overwatch came out is that it's very easy to get into. You just do things very easily. You just, like, you press a button and then you just do it. And the only hard part about the game is learning how to use those abilities. But, you know, there's only so much you can learn when your ability is you press Q and it activates for you. So, or your passive does everything for you and you don't even have to really actively think about it, kind of deal. So, okay, so hopefully you understand these two, because if you don't, then you won't understand the rest of the tier list. But yeah, like, also, like, more things, like, you could ignore scans, and then you could use that for psychology. Like, there's a lot of psychology you could do with Yvette, so I'm gonna talk more about that when I get to Galatea. But let's just go through the tier list. What is it? Based off of the original one, we're gonna put Ica down in D tier. a lot of people on the post is like, well, it's really hard to get up close because Ica doesn't have any like ability that lets you get up close, so you have to rely on smokes and flashes. So I'm like, sure, but like, Ica has pseudo slugs, so you don't really have to be that close. But then again, you know, that's like a playstyle thing. It's just like her kit, right? Like outside of being a shotgun, which is actually kind of unique. Like there's only like technically 3 other shotguns in the game, but with Ica though, you kind of like the Q does everything by itself. Your passive is like fucking negligible. I only thought about it like a total of once, and then it's like, oh wow, you get to do even more damage to paper targets. Daring today, aren't we? I think like the only instance it would actually matter is like with a sword slash. I think, or like with your knife on like an enemy that's on the wall. But you have to charge a meter, and that meter gets taken up whatever you use. So there is a decent amount of like skill and thinking behind it. But if Ming's like D tier, then Ica's gonna be even farther down into D tier, because you just don't really get to do that much with like Ica Q, like Ica ult, Ica Q like is a big ass area of effect, and Ica's ult, like there's some interesting stuff you could do with like training people with like their fucking like COD zombies with her ult, as well as using it with her A3 to become really fucking tanky. I think that's fucking cool. I think that's awesome. I think that's fun. This isn't a fun tier list. I fucking hate playing Leona, personally. I don't think she's very fun. I fucking hate Maddie. I don't think she's very fun. I don't think she's like very fun for either side. I love slowing down the game, but that doesn't mean that they don't take, like, there's not that much to learn. There's plenty to learn for both of them. So there's just not that much you can learn with Ica. I mean, at most you could do like an ult through the wall from like a lower floor as like something that's really like really intelligent, and that requires a lot of thinking as Ica. But like, you know, every character in this game kind of requires a lot of thinking. So I guess that's not really that indicative of what is it? Of anything of anything of value. Really, when it comes specifically to like this tier list and like comparisons to other characters in this game, Ica's is pretty low. Flavia, I already talked about it a little bit. Her Q lets her be more aggressive. It activates for you, which is like, okay, sure. Like, and you could do some stuff with it, like because you get invincibility, you can like deny bomb and stuff. And like, her ultimate is actually in some cases like pretty easy, but also kind of hard to use, and you still like have to use it properly. So there is quite a lot of skill and like a lot of different skills you have to learn for Flavia. But if you compare it to like other stuff that actively interacts with other mechanics in the game, then like maybe I was like considering Flavia going to C tier, but like I don't know, because like at the same time, like Flavia does like actually interact a little bit with the rest of the game. She ignores slows in her Q form. What is it? And I think that's fucking it. But I was like, so you barely interact. So like, she's like almost a C tier, but I'm gonna keep her in D, right? Just for the time being. Like, unless like another fucking character like changes my mind. Also, let me just talk about like the different tiers. For instance, so like D is like, oh, your Q like does everything for you. C is like, oh, you have to manage a resource, so like Celestia would be here, right? And I will place her later on because she has her Qs that she has to manage. I would put Fragrance there, but Fragrance is lower because she's a fucking. You don't have to aim with Celestia Q, but at least you have to look in their general direction. You don't even have to look in the same area as your teammates to get the Fragrance Q to go and activate, right? So stuff like that. B is lineups. So Audrey, Cho are good examples here, where the grenades actually kind of like take skill to line them up properly and stuff like that. There's like rollout lineups for Cho. A is planning. I'll put Leona up there as an example, because Leona, you have to plan about where the enemy comes from and how they will interact with your blocks, and that actually kind of takes like quite a lot of skill. And there's also a lot of tech with her, especially from like China. So I'm like, whoa, that's kind of fucking cool, you know. I wish I had the replay, but for the upcoming Strinova Continuum tournament, what is it, the underdog tournament. I have a fucking teammate and he's like crazy with Leona, like actually insane with how he plays Leona, and I'm like, whoa, this is fucking mind-boggling. Like, okay, so like, and I had to actively learn and think about it, so that's the reason why. So, and S is like, you do that and like you interact with every mechanic in the game, or like almost every mechanic, right? So with your vet, you interact with the glide mechanics in Stringify mode. You interact with movement speed and like how fast players move because of her ice and slipperiness. You also interact with every single other duelist because you're both very easy, like you're squishy, and you're also a tank at the same time, right? So there's a lot of stuff you have to consider, and every like other mechanics that you have to interact with, right? Like Galatea is up in S for a similar reason. So like you have to interact with your scanner, right? You interact with scans. You've also interact with scans, by the way. But your scanner, so you interact with scans. You also interact with like wind storms and like ignoring wind storms, or you interact with like what, for example, like Space Lab's wind tunnel. Like your clone can stand there, but you'll be forced into glide mode after you go into your clone. There's also like pixel walks, which also your vet can do, but pixel walks, and like there's just a lot of different mechanics that you have to interact and consider, right? And also what is it? And also a lot of like psychology, but I will go over that when I actually have to talk about Galatea. So next, fragrance is D tier. I think I already explained why a little bit in the rant. You kind of, your ability does everything. Your passive is literally fucking nothing. I mean, now I want to fucking move Flavia up because of her passive. Whatever, she's staying there for now. Her passive is nothing. It's just a fucking like basic ass AOE. Her Q is an AOE. Her ult is an AOE, and you don't have to really think about except maybe your positioning a little bit. But then again, every character has to think about the positioning, right, in relation to their Qs, so it's not really that unique. Okay, next character, Fuchsia. I'm tempted to move her up to C because like I've seen some smart Fuchsias like keep dead players alive so that they could use it as like a health pack, which I think is pretty cool. But outside of that, there's not really that much you can do with Fuchsia. Like, there's like some tech with her A3 or whatever, the one to revive yourself with. I think it's the A2. Yeah, it's the A2. With her A2, where like the fastest you can move in this game as a knocked down Fuchsia is by falling. So like on area 88, you would always be like near ledges or like behind walls, for example, right? So that you could always self-res. So I think that's kind of cool. Outside of that, like her ultimate is like, I don't even know how it fucking works. Maybe that's why she should be higher, but but what is it? But like, yeah, she just shoots faster, I guess. That's so cool. It's a straight boost. Her passive is, yeah, I already talked about that. Her active is like very similar to Fragrance's. Well, so like, I don't know. She has some synergy, which I mean, it's something you could think about, you know? So maybe she goes up to C. But at the same time, right, it's like, well, there's like things you can do that can like differentiate you, but at the same time it's like, wow, okay, sure, cool, I guess. like after you learn the basics, there's nothing past that kind of deal, right? So with the vet, when you use ice, there's different kinds of ice. You can use snowball, you can use charge, you can have multi-purposed charges, like you use it both as a moving wall and then to force a glide, and then also to place ice in an advantageous position, right? But and you can do so many different things. You can, and the thing is though, after you learn them, you could still like figure out new spots for them, which I mean you could also do with Fuchsia, to be fair. But like there is more complexity though. There is way more that you could do past like, oh, you just stand next to a ledge. It's like, oh, but this ice could go through this wall, but it'll only go through and cover that one position. So I should tell my teammates to push or something. Or it's like, oh hey, like you're more. I feel like you think more actively about the geometry as your vet. But then again, you know, I'm totally not biased. But you know, so maybe Fuchsia's a little bit higher up. I don't know. Like there is things you can learn as Fuchsia, but overall, there's like very minute over like the stuff that will that are later on in the tier list. I almost forgot about every other character for a second, but it's like there's so much. I'll rant for so long when I get to Maddie. I don't even play Maddie, but like Mara, D tier. Same situation as Ming. Her ultimate takes a little bit more skill, I guess, than Ming's. But outside of that, it's like that's about it. Like, I mean, you could use it as like an ability to move more because you don't have to aim as much because you have because the enemy has a bigger hitbox. But outside of that, it's like whatever. The only thing Mara made me really think about is how far Strinova fell after we had to fucking deal with like the third fucking TTK and like health and armor rework because like apparently you have to change it every season. So whatever. Yeah, I think that's everything in D. We will go over to the next tier. It's gonna be a little bit faster because I think they're kind of self-explanatory. Coco, your Q like is kind of hard to use sometimes. Like it has a health pool, so that's kind of the reason why it's higher up. What is it? Yeah, that's literally it. Her Q has a health pool. I mean, it aims for you, but like your Q has a health pool, which I feel like is very important. So like if you use it with the A3, I think, if I'm not mistaken, your teammates have to manage the HP of the drone, and then that's kind of it. So in my opinion, that's like justifiable to put higher. Now I'm kind of regretting like only 2 slots here, but we'll see. Let's see. Let's do Celestia. Celestia is also in C tier. Just a lot of management. Like, you have to manage your 2 Qs, and then you also have to manage your ult, and then you also have to manage the time it fades, and keeping your teammates healthy. So stuff that you have to do, and you could also do some interesting positioning stuff with the TP. So maybe lineups. I don't know. Maybe lineups, but whatever. It could be like a fun mix-up tool because it's like by far the fastest, like the farthest you could get in a single teleport in the entire game. Not as fast as like Gala, but like still pretty fast. So Laween resource management, kind of self-explanatory. Just press Q. Her ult is like you could do some arguments for the light up with her ult, but I feel like there's not that much. I mean, there's ult spots, right? Like there's places where you could place your ability. Every character could do that, right? But having like using the mechanics of your ability to get interesting lineups, that's a different story, right? Which is the reason why I like economies here, because economy is in lineup tier because like there's like small slivers and like interesting like boosts you could get to and ways you have to think about how the map is, like the geometry of the map to place your lineup. So Laween's down there. Meredith, I'm gonna move her up to like the original tier list said C. This is one of the ones that I want to move up because they're like interesting spots where you could use your Q to get like over geometry and stuff to if we're gonna rework the tier list, we're just gonna do that. Okay. Oh no, but it was a perfect square. Whatever. Okay. Meredith, I'm gonna move her up from C tier over to B tier. She what is it? She has some fun stuff where you like with the glide over like walls and stuff, like not Casa Street, like Windy Town, B site wall. That shit's fun. That shit's interesting, and that shit is like you actually have to think about it. So that's kind of cool. That's literally it. A lot of people complain that she was kind of low, which is like it's actually kind of understandable. But what is it? I put her lower because I felt like her Q didn't really have like any lineups, right? Like you don't really have to think about where the Q lands, but now you actually have to think about where the Q lands, because what is it? Because you could glide over stuff and like stuff like that, and you have to interact with it in some interesting way instead of just pressing a button. I mean, you still have to press a button, but then you have to think about like the geometry and stuff, which is like the entire point of B tier is like thinking about the geometry and thinking about the map, how the map interacts with your Q specifically. So B tier character Michelle, whoop. I misplaced Michelle. I feel now the thing is with Michelle, right? I feel so bad for this dumbass cat because her fucking Mighty Meow lineups were killed like in some random update a while ago, which is the reason why she's so low originally. But you could still use the lineup, so I'm gonna move her up. But at the same time, right? It's like my fucking soul is broken, right? My soul is fucking broken seeing it. And on the same premise, we're gonna put Yagiri higher up because you could hide your cues. I think that's really cool. I think that's really cool that you could hide your cues in places and like have it as like a surprise. That's kind of the reason why Yvette's up there because you have it's like very close to planning, right? This is A tier, but not really planning, right? So it's another character. Okay, we're now going to the originals in B. B is Audrey. Alt is so fucking cool. Oh, I wish I had the clip where somebody got like a 3K and he held from like Windy Town A long and he just ulted with a lineup on the bomb. It was beautiful. We were like the entire VC was going fucking crazy when it happened. So I'm like only a little biased, but Audrey ult takes a lot of skill if you know lineups and stuff. Chiel is super self-explanatory. I don't think I need to explain this. Chiel has so many cool lineups. And like there's a lot of pre-round lineups. There's the basic one where the arrow goes 125 meters if you look directly up. There's so many cool things you can do as Chiel. You actually have to think about how your arrows land and how they move, the flight trajectory and stuff like that. It's so fucking cool. Economy, I think I already talked about a little bit about economy. Press Q with some interesting lineups. Like I know the God Spot on Cosmite. And like there was a God Spot on Portuler, but no one plays Portuler because it's not ranked. So, so there's lineups. There's lineups. That's the reason why she's higher. What's another character? Nobu. Same reason as Yagiri. They both can hide Qs in interesting places, and there's really cool areas where you could use your A2 for scans and stuff like that. So Nobu's in B. Reshi. Alright, we're gonna go now into A. A is like planning, right? So, planning about how the enemies will move, how they will interact with your mechanics, and like using that effectively is very difficult, and then you have to learn about how you can effectively use that plan. Also, I almost forgot a character. I was in B tier. You have some interesting stuff with super dashes, right? Using it for lineups to save like a windstorm or something, or as like a mix-up, or as like, oh hey, like they'll not expect me coming from mid, kind of deal. So Bimo's there, but I will explain more on why he's lower than CL when we get to CL, but that's later. And now we're gonna go to the segments where they'll take a long time to explain because they're very complex characters. Reshi's an A tier. You have Reshi wall lineups. You have to consider your A3. You have scans, which are very important, right? Very important interactions with scans. Both ways, really, because you have a scan and then the enemy can scan, counter scan, right? You have to do Nobunaga scans, shit like that, like on Cosmite. So you have to know the lineups, and you also have to know what they do for your team, right? So you have like here, like I don't know, the only Reshi lineups I know are the Cosmite ones, right? So you have three. You have wide, you have straight, and then you have closed, right? Closed is like the one where you barely like have any wall space, so you can plant the bomb and use the A3. Straight is kind of the same, where you use it for the A3, but you can't push heaven. You use it more for the A3. You use it to get more like aggressive positioning with your snipers. And then wide wall is one where you could both push box or you could push heaven. So those are like the three variations, right? Push heaven or box, aggressive snipers or plant, right? So stuff you have to think about with Reshi, right? Then also like you interact with Leona blocks, denying plants and denying positions, and then like what is it? Then you have scan in your wall, so there's a lot of interesting stuff you can do with it. Interesting lineups. There's a lot of stuff you have to think about when you play Reshi. Leona also same thing. Talked about a little. Leona is not a strong character, but she's very fun. There's a lot of tricks you can learn. Like, oh fuck, I was learning so much during scrims. by Leona like placing blocks in the wall, like embedded into the wall. That was really fucking cool. We had somebody pair with a shell Q. That's fucking cool. We just won a fucking round off of that. It was awesome. That was great. That was so cool. And then you obviously have like sky basing. Then you have like the block crap you could do on Cosmite, the deny plants. There used to be was it like Leona trenches is what I think it was called, where you use an exploit to see the enemy while they can't see you because you're jumping over and over again, so the animations aren't synced up or some shit. So, I mean, that's patched from what I've heard. So, like, okay, but whatever. That kind of sucks, but there's some interesting stuff. There's also like landmines, like on Windy Town. There's like a lot of stuff you can learn as Leona. So, yeah. Leona's a character that requires a lot of planning. Maddie. Let's see. How do I explain Maddie? Okay. Maddie is a very complex character, primarily because she denies. Obviously, her main mechanic is denying stringification or paper mode, whatever the fuck you want to call it. So you have to actively think about the way enemies will move around the map. So that's a big thing, because like with Qs, right? With Yugiri and Meredith, with your Q, you kind of just place it and then you kind of forget about it, right? But after you place it, now you have to think about it, right? It's like, oh well, like enemies can still force their way through Qs with Meredith and with Yugiri. But with Maddie, like, there are instances where they can still force their way through, but that's a bad Maddie Q. A good Maddie Q just doesn't give them the opportunity in the first place because they have to climb up or something, right? Or they have to, like, glide somewhere, and then you deny the glide, right? There's a lot of stuff that you have to do. You have to really interact with the map a lot, right? Then you also could, like, ignore scans a little bit with the A1. I wish more people use the A1. Use the A1 effectively and aggressively. It's so cool. It's so cool going invisible on a wall like it's Splatoon. And also there is interactions with just mostly just map geometry, right? So you have to think a lot about how the map geometry works. So how, like, where enemies will climb up and then where they will go after the fact, right? So like Maddie, for example, really loves vertical maps. So like Ocarnis, LeBrun, Windy Town. So, I mean, every map is pretty vertical in this game. But for example, let's say a flat map, 4-4. So she doesn't really work that well on 4-4. I mean, she still has spots, right? But, so you have to think about, like, oh, okay, so if I'm going to deny this wall climb up to Garden, then they will go from a different place into Garden. Or they won't go Garden at all, and they will move to a different part of the map. Or, but can they still force their way through? It's like, for another example, Kashi Street, great on Seaside. Like okay, I could technically block them off, but they could still force their way through, so I have to consider that, right? You have to think about the mechanics, like, with way more depth than, oh, they probably won't stand there because they'll get a slow and they have HP drain, or they will have armor drain. It's like, okay, cool, I guess. Alright. S, I have to explain a lot about the CL one, but I feel like S will be very easily summarized with Galatea. So, Galatea S tier. Why? Because, there's a lot of psychology behind her, right? Is that just a cue just to troll with me? Or is she actually going to threaten, like, going there? Is she actually going to go there? Is she not? Is she going to, she could deny, like, anything where, any argument where people, like, saying, oh, Flavia has a lot of positioning skill, applies to Galatea, and then some, right? Then you have invisibility, timing your invisibility well, and the consequences of it. Like, for example, it's really hard to TP to a teammate that's knocked, and you have to go invisible, and then you have to wait for the invisibility timer. That's a big fucking deal, right? Because, like, so there's a downside there, at least, right? You interact, like, while you do have the benefit of being fucking invisible, like, perfect invisibility, not like some fake-ass, like, Flavia shit, not some fucking, like, slow decay, like, Yvette shit, like, perfect invisibility. It's fucking useful. It's actually fucking useful. But it's at a cost of, well, you can't just TP on top of a guy, immediately kill him, and then leave, you know? So there's downsides to that. A3, there's also another downside where you kind of like your TP's back. I don't know why. Is it a bug? I don't know, but they don't carry you over to the extra timer for some reason when you leave a clone if you have the duration upgrade. Like, it's decays. I don't know why. I think it's a bug. I don't know, but the stuff with that. I already talked about all the other stuff, but yeah, psychology. It's a lot about psychology. It's like, oh well, is she like, how is she going to lurk? Is she going to lurk? Oh, where is she gonna be? What line? There's also lineups too. Like, there's a Windy Town lineup. I don't know if I'll show it on screen. But there's a Windy Town lineup where you could, what is it? Where you could shoot your Q in a way where you could go from A long all the way to garden. Like, in one Q. It's usually blocked by the big-ass building in the middle of the site, but, like, if you line it up properly, you could go all the way from A long into A backside, or A garden, whatever you want to call it. So there's lineups you can learn. There's a lot of other stuff you can learn. It's really cool. You interact with stringification, obviously. You always have to make a sound whenever you leave a wall. Unless your passive's on cooldown, right? So that's a big fucking deal, in my opinion. That's massive. Because now you have to interact like, well, now I'm the loudest fucking character, right? Now I'm the loudest character in the fucking lobby. So now I have to consider about that and think about that and put it into account. Like, oh, where can they hear me? Where can't they hear me? And while every character has to think about hearing, you have to think about it way more. Like oh, with Flavia, you can think way more about positioning. But the problem with thinking about positioning with Flavia is that you fucking have a cue to say, no, and then you can just have fucking invulnerability. The only way you can become invincible in this fucking game is either basically becoming invisible with a Coco ult and you can get ulted while being alive, or you're fucking Flavia. You get invincibility. So, like, what? I don't understand why people are so confused with Flavia, because you get fucking invincibility. Sure, the invincibility does interact with some mechanics, which is the reason why she's slightly higher up now, but, like, you get invincibility. You don't have to fucking think that hard when you play Flavia, and you just fucking press the fucking panic button. Like, oh fuck, I am in danger. You press the panic button, and then you get out for fucking free? Hello? So whatever. I will re-explain Yvette because Yvette's my main, and I'm obsessed with her. Super fucking cool. I love her so much. There's a lot of, like, any psychology that applies to Galatea applies to Yvette, right? So, with Yvette, there's a lot of Yvette hiding spots, and you can do pixel walks is what I mentioned earlier with Galatea. You can do some pixel walks, the same ones as Galatea, some you can't, though. So there's some interesting interactions you can do when it comes to that. You also have a damage boost and you're extra tanky, right? Because of your Fae. But then you have to be tied to the bear, so there's a problem with that. So you have to think about where your bear's positioned and your positioning, as well as where your invisibility will be and the lineup of the bear, if the bear can even get to there. And what is it? And like pre-fade lineups that go through where ice goes through walls. There's snowball lineups, but I don't know any of those because snowball fucking sucks. But see, there's a lot of stuff you can learn as Yvette. There's so many things that you have to interact with and have to consider while playing Yvette, which is the reason why I'm so fucking pissed about, like, why people don't really understand what a skill ceiling is, because it is not indicative of strength, of meta, of how strong a character is. Because Yvette was both very strong, but also very weak at the same time. Because without her bear, she's a fucking sitting duck. There's a lot of things you have to... But then again, you have to think about that, right? Well, with fucking Flavia, you get fucking the panic button. Like, I don't fucking understand. You get the fucking big-ass panic button. Or you have, oh, we get guaranteed kill. It's like, why the fuck are people confused? Or, oh, we get free damage boost. And also the easiest gun to aim in the fucking game. It's like, what the fuck? Hello? Why? I mean, if you watch this far, then you're probably you either like really wanted to hear me out and then call me dog shit, or like you agree with me for some reason. I don't know why, but I'll be real. I don't know why, but yeah. CL. So here's the reason why CL is higher than Bimo. Okay, maybe I'll bring her down to planning, right? But I feel like with CL specifically, her interactions with the game's physics engine are so complex that I am going to put her in S tier. Not hashtag not biased. With CL, right? Her movement is so complex because of the physics engine. So because of her super dash, she lets you interact interestingly with double jumps. She has lineups for it. She has like different interactions with the shield, right? So you could snipers get extra damage. What is it? It interacts with grenades and utility, denying utility, at least for you specifically. And then you have super dash, right? So you could use that. You could double jump midair to maintain the momentum. You could b hop. Mind you, this fucking character makes b hopping useful. What? Because there used to be no reason to ever b hop in this game. There is no character in this entire game that has any reason to use b hopping for at all. There's nothing you can use b hopping for any character. But guess what? We have actual just basic ass b hopping now. That's so fucking cool. Okay? And then you slide off different objects in different ways. And there's this tech that I want to talk about a little bit in this rant, and I want to talk about it more in depth in the later video. But it is called like the shield pop, right? Where you take out your shield, you charge up an explosion, right, with the A2. You hit him with the stun, and then you hit him with the explosion afterwards if the shield's like low HP or something. So you still get the stun, you still get the damage, and you get to shoot him now. And mind you, because of the nerf to CL, where your shield, has a 1.5 second cooldown after being put away, then you can't pop it back up immediately. So there's no reason to like shoot and then put the shield back up because you fucking can't do that tech anymore. So now the shield pop, because the charge is faster now too. The A2 charge is faster. Went from 1 second to 0.75. So now that the shield pop is like, because the charge is faster, you can actually do shield pops. That's really fucking cool. Then obviously anything with movement, right? Movement's so fucking big because unlike Bimo's like super dash, it would give him like a good like three or 4 extra meters of distance. CL's okay. Let's talk about CL super dash. Normal dash. Sorry, CL's normal dash could go 8 meters by default. With a very basic, easy, and simple to learn super dash, you get 16 meters. With double jumps and like B hops, and then maybe using like a lot of heights. Sorry, no height, by the way, actually. You get 4 times the distance, 32, okay? And then more, then you probably could get like, I don't know, I haven't tested. I haven't fucking tried because it's super fucking hard, mind you. This is like the only character that actually takes mechanical skill in this fucking game. I'll fucking say it. Every other character is fucking easy peasy. With CL, with the super dash, and with height, and with perfect B hops, you could get like up to I can say 40, 50 meters. And that's insane, dude. That's 5 times extra distance. You have to think so much more about it. And it's way more applicable. Because with Bimo Super Dash, you can either use it in a fight, just for a little bit extra distance and height, or use it to get to a different position you barely weren't able to before. But with CLs, it's like, well, now the entire map opens up. I'm basically a Galatea with a shotgun now. But I'm also a Galatea with a shotgun that doesn't have their shield anymore, right? So, like, you actually have to, there's trade-offs. There's a lot of things you have to think about CL. And I swear, I have so many fucking clips where CL takes a lot of fucking skill. Like, thinking about how CL interacts with the map. Like, where's a good example? I need to fucking... What I did is I used my Q to get behind the enemy really fast and just ignore 2 enemies. Because they didn't expect me to go that fast. Came to win the round. Because I used my super dash in an interesting way, similar to a Galatea Q, but not really, because a Galatea Q takes way more time than just jumping, right? So this is like a little bit back to the power dynamic, but whatever. But now I'm using it in an interesting and interactive and effective way that makes me think about where I have to position myself, because I'm also very vulnerable after I use my shield jump, right? With Bimo Super Dash, it's a free fucking action. There is no trade-offs to just spamming the super dash all the time. But with CL super dash, you have to think, well, if I'm gonna jump to here, if I'm gonna shield jump or like super dash over here, right, then I won't be able to use my shield for at least 10 seconds. And that means I will be vulnerable during that time. So now I have to consider how I have to live for at least 10 seconds without my biggest, strongest, and best utility. That is a big deal, right? And that takes a lot of thinking. Hopefully this kind of explains the tier list. Yes, I did kind of rework it. Why? Because backlash. Also because some of them are really stupid of me. Like putting Michelle not in lineup tier. Because like some of her mighty mouse spots still work. Like I went out of my fucking way to learn the ones at Area 88, and then they fucking removed them. Like what? So we have some move ups, like 3 move ups from C to B and like 2 from D to C. So hopefully you fuckers are like, oh my god, Fabi is still so low. What the fuck? It's like, okay, shut up.